Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is The Dialogue. Thank you so much for being with me. Now, today I'm looking at Anthony Scarrumucci, the man who was within the Trump organization or administration. And we're looking at his body language, specifically with this woman from the UK. She's a reporter, and just how he oversteps his mark just too often. And probably this did go some way into leading to him to lose his job. Let's have a look.
I think those are both two principles, and so as a communications director, it would be inappropriate for me to get in the middle of that. And so I think this will resolve itself over the next week or so. Certainly, I think what I would say to my colleagues here and cabinet members is that if you really understand the president's personality, he's a very straight shooter. He likes to express himself. He likes to
Okay, so even there, he did have his tongue through his mouth. He's a very straight shooter. So I think that he's been in the line of fire from Trump and that he's a bit displeased with what he said. So he's not being incredibly all forthcoming.
People know how he feels. Sometimes it's a tough conversation. He's had some of those conversations with me during the campaign.
Why isn't he having that conversation with Jeff Sessions? Why is he tweeting about it, letting rumour take over?
And he's a little bit nervous or insecure because he's touching his neck there, which is a vulnerable spot for all of us, for all humans. If we touch our neck, it's vulnerable.
I think part of his nature is that he's a very tough person. And I mean by tough, I mean it in a good way. He's really trying.
So at the moment, he's keeping his distance and he's keeping his own spatial awareness to himself, which makes sense. And so we're just going to go a little bit faster here.
To use the bully pulpit and the Oval Office and his presidency to execute an agenda on behalf of the American people. And this is a very tough town.
You think Jeff Sessions will stay? Will he be in the job this time next week?
Do I think he will stay? It'll be up to the president. I think Jeff Sessions is...
You'd like to see him...
Now, we saw that the reporter there, she actually touched her hair. And when we touch our hair, that can indicate that we're a little bit nervous or a little bit insecure. It's not because her hair was in the way. She's got short hair, but she moved it because it's a sign of insecurity, even for her. Now, if we look at him, he's touching his ring finger. Interesting. He's soothing himself. It's like when you're a little baby and you cry and your parents come over and they sort of rock you to sleep. It's the Olympic system on overdrive and he's just soothing himself.
But what I would say to my colleagues here, have a tough exoskeleton, be a tough person with a strong backbone. At some point, they will meet. I think Sarah said that they didn't meet yet.
Does skeleton mean allowing the President of the United States to be rude to you, to call you beleaguered, to basically slag you off in a public forum?
Okay.
So he's moving around a lot, so he doesn't really like that question, and he's sort of turtled in on himself, so his arms have come right down, and he's a little bit perturbed.
So you're from Great Britain, but I'm not from Great Britain, okay?
You're from Great Britain? See what he did with his hand. He put it out like a little puppy dog coming at you. He's saying, "Whoa down, dog, don't come near me." And he's saying woe down to her.
I'm from a town that's right on the border of Queens, okay, and the president grew up in Queens. Okay, so we have a little bit of a different communication style. It's a little bit more direct. It's probably a less subtle and polite, but you don't think that politicians...
So here we go. We're going into the personal space of someone else now. And that's his way of saying, hey, he's being aggressive here. He wants to get his point across to her.
In your hometown.
And we've got finger pointing. That's like, you really shouldn't do that if you're a politician. Finger pointing is not good in body language wise. What makes us think is that you're telling us off about something, which he is. He's telling her off.
Or hitting each other left and right. Now, they may be hitting each other in a more subtle way. I sort of like the more open approach. You know, one of the things I cannot stand...
And then he touches his ear, so he's insecure with that.
This town is the backstabbing that goes on here, okay? Where I grew up, in the neighborhood I'm from, we're front stabbers. We'd like to tell you exactly where we're from and what we're doing. And so,
well, that's not entirely true, not with the phone call that he made to the New York Times, I think it was, sort of backstabbing certain people within the administration.
So to me, if you can handle the president's personality, and you can handle his temperament, which I happen to love, then you're going to do great with the president. I just want to make one more comment.
Here we go. The finger pointing again. Refrain from finger pointing, even if you're in a conversation with someone, because it's actually aggressive.
I think your viewers
I'm not going to cut you off at all. I'm going to talk.
And now he goes over her into her space. She doesn't quite go into his.
Do that front stabbing, because I'm wondering whether the president.
And now he's pulling her down like a little doggy.
He's been front stabbed by some of the senators who voted down that repeal of Obamacare.
Well, it's too early.
And now he's self-soothing. See his fingers? They're self-soothing again.
It's too early. What do we know? That's a congregational setting. There's a lot of conversations that go on. If you read Team of Rivals, It took Lincoln 3 or 4 times to get what he wanted from the Senate and the House of Representatives, which was the full abolition of slavery. That was a much tougher thing to get done than what we're working on right now.
Even under Obama.
It was a much tougher thing to get done. Yeah, so he's really direct, and maybe that is from where he's from, which is Queens, and they are more direct and much more expressive with their hands.
They voted to get rid of Obamacare. It was only
So notice how he's soothing himself because we're talking about Obama here.
Obama that kept that bill going. So here, under Trump, under the
It took
Republicans...
22 months for President Obama to get what he wanted from the legislature. 22 months. We're in the 6 months of the president's presidency, and so think about the things.
And look at her body language. She's pulled right back and covered her arms, so she knows that this conversation isn't cordial, put it that way.
That we're trying to accomplish inside of 1 year. If I'm right, and I believe I will be, and the president's going to make it so, we get the Obamacare repealed and replaced, which I predict will still happen, and we get a level of tax reform that we haven't seen since 1986, and we do that inside of a 12-month period of time of the presidency. I think that'll be remarkable, and hopefully you'll invite me back on the BBC and say, geez.
Here we go. So he touched her. So there's a real mixture of open and very closed and very direct and aggressive body language here. He's really encroaching in on her space, and he touched her hand.
That'll be remarkable, and hopefully you'll invite me back on the BBC.
He's going, whoa, 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 I'm talking, don't talk.
You say, geez, the guy had pretty good predictive powers.
And then he had the open body language, back to covering himself in the front there.
Time frame we're working for.
I can't give you a date because I'm
healthcare
now living in Washington. Okay, do you live here in Washington?
Nope.
Okay, see that you're lucky for you that you don't live here in Washington, because what happens here in Washington is people say one thing to your face, but they
And
don't
now,
really
did
mean
you notice
it,
what
and they
she
say
did?
something else behind your back.
Sorry, guys, did you notice what she did? She put her arms right in front of her, so she was trying to cover herself and keep herself safe.
Okay, so what I like about the president, it's actually good leadership to say the things to people's faces, what he actually means, and then let's resolve it or not resolve it. We're either going to reconcile or we're going to go in different directions, but at least now everybody knows how they feel. What I love about the president, you don't think I've had
Again, he's quite aggressive with his one finger.
tough conversations with the president, him and I? Of course we have. We've known each other for a long period of time. But what I love about the president, he's a remarkably loyal guy. The loyalty, though, has to be...
And notice what she's doing. She's pulling her clothes because she's feeling insecure and she's not liking where this is going. It's quite an interesting dynamics going on.
be symmetrical, and good loyalty is always symmetrical.
And notice his hand. He's pulling her back. Whoa, back. Don't come near me. I've got the upper hand in this conversation.
Well, you don't want asymmetrical loyalty, but he's here for a reason. The American people are fed up with this city.
Okay.
And so I'm calling on my friends in the city, a lot of these guys I like in the House and in the Senate, to dial it back, support the president's agenda, because it's your long-term agenda and it's in your long-term best interest.
Let me ask you something. If you were running a campaign and somebody called you up and said, we've got serious dirt on your opponent, it comes from Russia, would you take that meeting?
Well, I think I'm going to stand by what the president's remarks were, that most people would take that meeting. I think what
Again, she touches her nose and she swishes her hair back. She's still a bit insecure about this.
I have issue with is that all of us, myself included, were political neophytes back in June of last year. And so had Donald J. Trump Jr., who's a dear personal friend of mine, and I can attest to all of your viewers,
And notice what he's doing to you, to us, the viewers. He's pulling us back, saying, hey, he is a good friend of his, and don't be judging that.
know he's done absolutely nothing wrong, and he will be completely and totally exonerated.
You're saying he's naive.
I didn't say he was naive. I said he was inexperienced. There's a difference between naivete, which is simplicity and some level of stupidity, and inexperience, which is, okay, this
So he's on the offensive and defensive a lot. He's like, I'm going to get you before you get me. It isn't a great strategy. You've got to be more connective with the person who's in front of you, so you're actually more likable, so that people will buy into what you're saying.
is something I have some curiosity about, and I'm going to
Why
take the
wouldn't you
meeting.
ask advice then? Why wouldn't you go to somebody who wasn't inexperienced and say, should I take this meeting with Russians?
We were running. You have to think about how
There we
phenomenal
go.
this movement
Touching her again, getting right in her space, doesn't really like where she's going with that. She's covering her body.
was. We were running a campaign with a skeletal staff. We spent less than 2/3 of what Secretary Clinton spent. We had a very small local operation. She had thousands of people
Again, she touches her nose. She's nervous as well.
all over the country. You've
And hand to her chin, so she's a bit critical.
got to think about how upset the United States people are, the middle-class people. You know, when I came back from your beautiful city in London, I was with the dean of the Harvard Law School, and she said,
She liked that, so she opened her body language.
well, why did they Brexit? All of the elites that I just met with in London said they were never going to Brexit. And I looked at her, I said, have you been to a Bernie Sanders rally?
There we go. He's touching her again. It's sort of like inappropriate.
Have you been to a Donald J. Trump rally? That'll explain everything you need to know about.
That's quite inappropriate right there. His hands as though he's cupping her breasts. She doesn't like that. Let's go back and have a look at that. It's slow-mo.
And I looked at her, I said, have you been to a Bernie Sanders
Right there, he's touching her.
rally, Dean?
And displeased. Look at that face. He's disgusted with it.
Have you been to a Donald J. Trump rally?
And he's more congruent with that.
That'll explain everything you need to know.
right there. I mean, you can interpret that this is a I'm grabbing your breasts because I want to put you in your place, which is a chauvinistic way to look at it. Or it can be that he's just trying to explain himself. She's moved her head away. Maybe it's subconsciously she's recognizing, hey, what are those hands doing?
All about the discontent.
And I've been to the Trump rallies.
So she's got a pad there and her hands up. Back off, Mr. Scarrumucci. Back off.
And I've been to Brexit rallies. But I want to bring you back onto I want to bring you back onto the Russia question, though, because this is threatening to undermine every other thing that the president is trying to get done.
That.
You don't think it's damaged?
He was displeased. His tongue came through his mouth just then.
No.
This is my video on Anthony Scarrumucci. I'm not sure whether he would have stayed around if he worked on his body language or not, but he does need to work on communication and connecting properly with the person in front of him so that us, the viewers, can buy into what he's saying. It's not okay to be aggressive or to be passive aggressive. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This was the dialogue. Please go to my Patreon page, which you'll see in the link below, and or like, subscribe and ding my bell.